Trying to diagnose a misfire on an engine can be an incredibly tedious, frustrating thing. There's a number of things that can cause an engine misfire. For example, you could have a valve train issue. You could have a vacuum leak. You could have an ignition issue with the spark plug, the wires, or the ignition coil. There's a number of things that can lead to this sort of issue. Now, the 3.6 liter Pentastar motor has a fair number of these things happening. And all you have to do is search the internet to see that a whole lot of times it's going to lead you to valve train issues because a lot of people are having rocker issues with these motors. Sometimes you don't want to fully jump to the conclusion without verifying that first because that can be an extensive job. In this video, I was going in and having to replace the oil cooler anyway, so I figured let's just take a look at those rockers and see what kind of condition they're in. If they're bad, I'll go ahead and replace them, and then we'll go from there because I was already had the motor that far down anyway. So in this video, we're going to be trying to diagnose why we have a misfire on cylinder 1 of our Jeep JK. This 2015 Jeep JK with the 3.6 motor. This is unfortunately another common issue with these Jeeps. As soon as you search misfire on the internet, most of the time it leads you to rocker issues because there is so many people have had issues with the rockers on these motors. There's a big class action lawsuit and all that sort of stuff. I was already replacing this oil cooler, so why not just go in and check the rockers while I'm there? Now, the rockers don't look as bad as some of the ones that I've seen online. I figure they still have some wear on them, so why not replace them, throw new spark plugs in, check all the vacuum hoses, check all the wiring, all that sort of stuff to try to rule out why we would be getting a misfire on that particular cylinder. Since that's one of the more common issues that lead to that, let's just rule that out right away. All right, so I've begun taking out the two 10 millimeters right here, loosening up both of the hose clamps. Then I'm going to start taking all this off. We've got a number of different 8 millimeters that go all the way around this. Got a couple sneaky guys back in here. We've got a couple more sneaky ones right down in here on this plate. There's a plate right under here. We pulled off the intake tube. We've also got all these little electrical connectors and vacuum lines. Just kind of start feeling your way through it and finding them all. So there we've got the intake split in two. I want to make sure not to drop anything in there. We're gonna pull the rest of this guy up and out of there and take a look at this filter housing and see what kind of shape it's in. Alright, so here comes one of my lessons learned. The first time I went to do this, pulling off this fuel line fitting right here. Now this one pulled off nice and easy. No problem there. And we can So the first time I did this, I accidentally messed up this plug. So they do sell these plugs. You can get these replacement little plastic parts at AutoZone. They're Dorman part numbers. But you can see how these things are pretty fragile. So you have the main clip, the white clip in there, and then you got the blue clip, which is like a safety clip, which you just kind of work backwards. And the first time I did this, I broke that. But the good thing is, those are easy to find at AutoZone and easy to replace. I am just sucking the radiator fluid out, just from this little access point right there on the thermostat, rather than draining it all the way out. It's just easier to, instead of making a mess on the floor, just use this fluid extractor. Alright, so we got a bunch more 8 millimeter bolts that I loosened up, and we can get the rest of this intake out of there. Now, part of this, we also have all of the injector all of the injector wiring on there, so we got to take each of these off. All right, lessons learned number 2, these little clips. So we've got these little red clips. On the injectors, they pull outward. You pull up on this little lip, and then you squish this guy in and pull it out. Last time I did this, I broke a couple of these. They literally crumbled in my hand. I think they get heat soaked and they get brittle over time. So we've got also an injector misfire on this cylinder, so that could always be an issue, a wiring issue. This doesn't look bad enough to cause that, so we might have something else going on there. So something else we got to look into while we're in here. All right, now we're going to vacuum all of this out. Alright, so all of our parts came in from Amazon. I ordered everything off Amazon. We don't have an affiliate link or anything, but it all came here in like 2 days. So I've got all the rockers soaking in oil. Got the lifters here, going to soak those in oil too. Got all the gaskets right there. So I also ordered a PCV valve. I need to do that as well. Over here, we've got the timing kit that we will use to lock in our timing. The first thing you got to do is set your motor to top dead center. At the phasers right here, need a 36mm socket for the end. I've got this at top dead center, and what we're going to do is we got these 2 lines right here and right here. We can, it's in there pretty tight. And then all of these have to point upward. All 4 of these holes. So I'm going to mark this link with paint and that link right there with paint. So in case anything moves, we know exactly where it's at. Alright, so what I've got here, I've got this tool. This is listed for the right side, for the passenger side. So right there, it slides right in. I use some paint to mark the link and also for the timing, I've got these 2 hash marks lined up, looking right at each other. I also have all 4 of these holes are pointing straight up. So from all my research, that's how you know you have top dead center. I slide that in there so it won't move. Alright, when pushing this guy down, it definitely didn't go as easy as like other people's videos make it look. I actually broke it the first time that I did it because I was trying to push down too hard on it. And they actually come with 2 of these, and so it's lessons learned. Look at the number on there. There's a number that relates to the year engine that you have. There's no instructions that come with the kit that I got, so I had to look that up online separately. So this one is a little bit wider right here and a little bit different shaped right here. So I had to plastic weld it back together. It cracked right along there when I was trying to push it down. And another thing I had to lessons learned is you have to grease the heck out of it. I used a bunch of just regular grease, but someone said white lithium grease or something. I just put some grease on it to make it slide down like that. And I finally got it after a whole lot of fighting. So yeah, that's kind of a lessons learned there. It kind of pushes down like that over an oil galley bolt, just right down there. So grease the heck out of it. These aren't too bad to break loose. Make sure that's on there straight. It stays on straight. All right, got both of those phasers loose. Alright, so unscrew this phaser out of there. Then can remove this guy right here. And this is all gonna stay put. Then, alright, so I was able to easily pull that out of there and let it droop down. Now I have access to the exhaust cam, and you can see what this tool is pushing down right here. It's pushing on that. My plastic weld held up good enough to push that down, so I can work on this one. I'm going to crack each of these with a wrench. I'm going to loosen each of those with the wrench, and then we'll get those out of there. Alright, so a couple more lessons learned here that I've seen from other people's videos. So one thing is you want to have a fresh Torx head while doing this. These aren't on there super tight, but I saw one guy's video where he had a Torx that one of the head was partially stripped, and he stripped out one of those bolts. That would not be a fun one to get out of there if you have that happen. So I would start at a T25. I believe a Torx 25. No, it's a T30. I'm sorry. It is a T30. You want to start with a fresh one before doing those, just to make sure. Don't strip one of these heads out. That would suck. Okay, as we started pulling these out, take a look. Here's the old rocker. You can see, maybe you can see that in video, it's got a lot of play in it. I can move it around pretty freely. Here's our new rocker. Doesn't really have any play in it. It's pretty tight. So this one's moving around all over the place. Number 2, moving around, like, look at that. That's that clanking that you hear when you start up. All of them have a lot of play. I put the caps all in order as they go with the cam, but what's nice is they are numbered. So 1E for exhaust, and then has a little arrow pointing forward, so that helps keep track of the order of how they all come out. Now I've been soaking all of these rockers in oil, and I'm going to set them all back in there just like that. The rockers and the lifters all soaked up with oil. I'm going to drop those all back in there. Alright, so I soaked all the lifters in oil, and I'm going to drop them all in one by one, working on the intake side, on the passenger side. I found a couple of the rockers that had some real excessive play. I don't know if that's what was giving me my problems, but it was going to be a problem real quickly. So these are all soaked in oil. Alright, so when I did the exhaust side, I took the phaser off, unscrewed this, took the entire phaser off, let the chain droop down, pulled the cam out, did the rockers and the lifters, put the chain back on, did the same thing over here, took the phaser off, let the chain droop down, and did all that. Now I got to go back and torque all of these. I've got them all snugged up, and it's 89 inch-pounds, which my inch-pound only goes up to 60. So I've got another bar torque wrench, and to convert that over, that would only be 7.5 foot-pounds. So pretty low torque value. So this has been a great Craftsman torque wrench over the years, and I like these style because you can see when you're starting to get close. So I converted it over. I think I've had pretty good luck with this one. So I just put in an inch-pound to foot-pound calculator, and there's a the torque procedure that I found online. Basically, you're starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that, and that's the process that'll go. You can see there I greased the heck out of this thing to get it to slide in there. So I'm Got these retorqued back down. I backed it up with a wrench, and we can pull this back out and move to the other side. All right, so the driver's side we can see a little bit easier. I put this the opposite side tool. This would say the left side, words up, right in there. Locked it in again, painted right across there and across the link that corresponds, right across there. And it's very similar, just a little bit different with how we do the how we loosen up the cam chain. So we got this side has this little tool. We're gonna reach this down here into this hole. We're gonna pull up on it, and then we have and then we've got this tool that's going to wedge down in there. And once we pull up on that, I'll try to get an illustration of what it looks like. But anyway, once we pull up on that, then that'll drop in there and wedge. All right, so as I'm looking down this, I just have to explain, you've got your chain guide and a hydraulic tensioner pushing against it. And there's a little hole on this side you have to drop this little holder into while kind of turning it sideways. Looking down there, you can just barely see the top of it. Then what I have to do is take this guy, and as I'm pulling up on the tensioner, push down on this guy, and that will release the tension. So let's give it a shot and see what happens. I think I got it loose enough, but I guess we'll see. I can see there's a lot of slack on the chain now. So one thing about this is these valves are loaded with tension where the other ones aren't, so they are a little bit more tricky. I was afraid I didn't get this down there far enough, but I do have slack on it now, so try to get a shot of those two dimples. I have the dimples there and dimples there. And these, we're just going to slide the phasers off just enough. Just enough to pull these cams. Not going to take them off all the way. Just going to leave them like that. And then what I'm going to do is go around and loosen all these caps again. Alright, so I made a mistake when pulling this one off. I forgot to turn it 30 degrees. This way would be top dead center. And you can see that lobe is pushing down on that valve back there. So I got lucky. I could have stripped one of these threads, but I didn't. So this is why you want to turn it 30 degrees, because see how it sits down in there? Now none of these lobes are pushing down on the valves. That was a close call. I could have really had a bad day from that one. So the next one I'm going to remember, after putting those caps back on, we're going to turn that one back to where the top dead center is, and that's where these holes face up. Alright, here's an example of like unloading it. You can see right there, as you start to bring it, it wants to just unload. And right there, now the valves aren't pushing against the lobe. This one I was able to just bring back right up there to top dead center. Anyway, so I unloaded this one. Now we're going to loosen all those screws. Alright, when I was trying to wrestle these phasers back on there, this thing slipped out for me. So the good thing is I had these marked with my paint. That really helped. Another thing, I was really struggling to get this to loosen up enough and get this in there, just by doing it the way I've seen other people do it. I use this to unlock it. You know, that thing helped unlock it. My hands are all slippery, so I used a vice grip. And oops, I'm dropping everything. Once I had that locking pin in there, I just took a screwdriver, a flat blade, and barely just pulled that back, the chain guide, and that worked way better than this thing. Just trying to do it with this thing. I struggled with it. I fought it, couldn't get it. I just very carefully used my flat blade, went against this, went against it just right here and pushed it back. It didn't take much effort and it made so much more sense. But it won't push back unless you use that little wire inside that hole. So once again, that's kind of another lessons learned from me. I'm the guy who always, this stuff never goes right for. I always make some sort of mistake. But anyway, I learned from my mistakes. But sometimes there's a simpler way that makes more sense to do this stuff. So anyway, that's how I did it. The important thing, everything's lined back up. I've got these arrows facing each other. I've got this thing back in place. I've got these all lined up to where they're supposed to be on both sides. I should have just pulled these. I know, just being lazy. These are all lined up. These are lined up. The caps are all torqued all the way down. I just have to finish torquing these last ones. And then I need to finish cleaning off the surface, the seal surface. It has a little RTV that somebody used on there. We'll scrape that off and double check, just make sure all these rockers are sitting in the right area, make sure nothing moved out of where it's supposed to be, and just double check everything again. Then I got to replace this dumb oil cooler too. So alright, so just double checking the timing before I put the cover back on. The arrows are lined up, my paint marks are lined up, the dots on top of the cam, everything's all lined up to where it's supposed to be. So then I just want to start at the back and make sure I did not drop anything in there, because it would be easy to do. Now, one thing I want to point out is how clean these heads are. Look at how clean those are. I'll put a picture here of a dirty head, and you can see the difference. And that's why these shouldn't have failed this fast, because I change the oil religiously on this thing with synthetic oil. Alright, same with this side. We check the timing. Double, triple checked all the torque, make sure nothing fell in there. At this point, I get the motor completely back together, all tightened up and everything, and I go to start it and immediately have all kinds of check engine lights. So I'm really frustrated. I start going through it and I immediately start checking for vacuum leaks. Now, I do find a vacuum leak. I found that I didn't have the intake down tight enough, so I said, oh, okay, no problem. I retighten everything, go to start it up. It seemed like it was running okay. I started driving it around town, and then it started throwing check engine lights again. Now, I knew it wasn't the timing, otherwise it wouldn't run that good, so it still seemed like it was pointing towards a vacuum leak. Now, I had also replaced the PCV valve. That's something I didn't cover in the video, forgot to, but the PCV valve's on the back of the motor in kind of a difficult spot to get to. Anyway, that's another thing that I had done. So as I'm going through all this, I'm checking for vacuum leaks because everything's pointing towards there's a vacuum leak. I had replaced a map sensor, checked all the sensors, checked all the gaskets, all this sort of stuff. Till one time I pulled off the intake again, I found a puddle of oil in there. The only way that oil could get in there is if that PCV valve failed. I pull out the PCV valve, and sure enough, I find that it had basically fallen apart. It wasn't working like it was supposed to. I replaced it with a new one, and immediately, you know, that's running good. So the next issue I ran into is the PCV valve. Now, to get to it, gonna need something like this. I was struggling, could not get the valve cover off, so I ran to Harbor Freight, got me one of these. I haven't really needed one before, probably should have had one. But that pesky PCV valve is all the way back here in between the firewall. It's just a really great place to have to have to try to get to. There, I believe there's 2 bolts. You can see there's one right there. And another one down low. Now, you're supposed to change those out at around 100,000 miles, I believe. So it's actually good timing to address it, but what a pain to get to. There's our PCV valve. Whoever put that back there thought that was a good idea. Should have their head examined. But I get it. I get it. They don't only use this motor in the Wranglers, but it can be in different orientations. But what a terrible spot. That was terrible. But then once again, still a few weeks later, I get another check engine light, and it's still an engine misfire, and I'm so frustrated. I've gone through like all of this stuff. The valve train's running really good. It's not noisy. Like I'm not getting oil in the intake. And then I find the one time I go back to the ignition coils. When I had everything apart, I swapped 2-cylinder ignition coils. So the misfire had gone from cylinder 1 now to cylinder 3. And I think that's where I had swapped the ignition coils. So what I do is I figure at this point, I'm just replacing parts till I fix it. I go and I get a new ignition coil and I swap out that one that had the misfire on it. And boom, no more issues. Like all of a sudden I had solved, like weeks go by and not a single check engine light. And so ultimately I think that's what my main problem was to start with, was that ignition coil. So yes, I probably didn't have to do the rockers at this time. However, if you saw in the video, when I hold the rocker, I can wiggle it. It has a ton of play in it. I think those rockers still need to be replaced anyway. If I failed to not replace them in the long run, they probably would have completely failed and then wiped out the cam lobe, and now you got a really expensive repair. I got another video on here. It's actually the biggest video I have on the channel about doing a Hemi MDS delete, which wiped out a cam lobe. So anyway, yeah, these Mopar motors sure like to have the valve train issues, but ultimately I didn't have to do the rockers at this time, but they were still worn out, so it didn't hurt to do them anyway, and it prevented further damage down the road. I believe the ultimate issue was the ignition coil. And all these other problems that just come about, the bad PCV valve, checking for vacuum leaks, all that sort of stuff happens. But anyway, these misfires can be a huge pain in the butt. I see all kinds of people asking about them online, and I just wanted to share my experience in case it could help somebody else out there.